The beam came down without warning at 11:43 in the morning, and the sound it made, striking Vanessa Mitchell's car, was something everyone within 200 feet would remember in their bodies for a long time afterward. The metal shrieked. Glass shattered. The car folded in ways cars are not supposed to fold, and then there was stillness, which was somehow worse. The people on the sidewalk were paralyzed by it, the specific freeze that seizes people confronted with a crisis beyond their experience. Phones came out. Someone was calling for an ambulance already. But nobody moved toward the car, because the beam was still settling and there was broken glass everywhere, and no one knew if it was safe, except one person. He moved through the frozen crowd without hesitating, reaching the car before the dust had settled, and his hands found her in the wreckage, and he pulled her out with the calm of someone who has made this kind of decision before. He draped his jacket over her shoulders before the paramedics arrived. Then the sirens cut through everything, and the crowd shifted, and when people looked for him again, he was gone. Vanessa Mitchell woke in a hospital room trying to remember his face and could only get pieces, rough hands. Steady. A voice saying something quiet and grounding, a work jacket, brown canvas, worn at the elbows. She had the resources to find anyone. She intended to use them. Jack Reynolds had been awake since 5:30 in the morning, which was the same time he was awake every morning, and had performed the same routine he had performed every morning for 3 years. Shower without waking Emma, prepare her lunch, make her breakfast, check her homework from the night before, then wait for the sound of her feet on the floor before anything else happened. She was 6 years old and took her cereal arrangements seriously, lining the pieces up in patterns before eating them row by row, a habit she had developed after Nancy left. Jack had learned not to rush the patterns. He dropped Emma at Mrs. Henderson's apartment downstairs at 6:15. The elderly woman had been their lifeline since Nancy walked out, claiming motherhood was something she hadn't chosen carefully enough to continue. Mrs. Henderson watched Emma for a price that was barely sustainable and would not hear of Jack supplementing it. "You're a good father," she said whenever he tried. "I don't need more money from good fathers." He was 35 years old with calloused hands and dark hair that was perpetually in need of a cut. He was a construction worker because that was the job that had been available when he needed one urgently, and he had turned out to be good at it, and it paid the bills and was walking distance from Emma's school. He thought about architecture approximately once every 3 days. He had been in his 3rd year of architecture school when Nancy became pregnant, and the sequence of decisions that followed had been entirely necessary and nearly entirely without regret. He kept the architecture magazines. He kept his portfolio in a leather case in the closet. He drew in margins sometimes, at the kitchen table after Emma was asleep. The morning of the incident was ordinary until it wasn't. He had been working on foundation supports on the Mitchell Tower construction site, checking his watch against the lunch schedule when the beam on the floor above shifted. He heard the sound of the failure before he fully processed it, and he was moving before the beam struck the car below. He didn't recognize the woman as famous Vanessa Mitchell until that evening when someone left a newspaper in the site break room. He had seen a person trapped in metal and glass, and he had acted. The thought of anything beyond that had not occurred to him. At lunch the next day, one of the younger workers mentioned it. "That was the big boss herself," he said. "Word is she's offering a reward to find the guy who pulled her out." Jack unwrapped his sandwich. "I was on the west side," he said. "Didn't see much." He ate quietly and thought about Emma's reading assignment and the tear in her stuffed rabbit's ear that he needed to mend before she noticed. Vanessa Mitchell, 42 years old, CEO of Mitchell Enterprises, ran her company from the 30th floor of a building she had made into the city's skyline. She had built the firm from a small consulting operation into a real estate development powerhouse through a combination of vision and discipline that her admirers called brilliant and her competitors called relentless. The view from her corner office included 3 Mitchell buildings. The newest was still under construction. She returned to work the day after the accident with her tailored suit hiding the bruises and her expression allowing no commentary on either. When her assistant raised the board's concern about her returning too soon, she told him to redirect their concern to the quarterly profit margins. The man who had saved her was what she couldn't stop thinking about. Not as a romantic consideration at first, but as a genuine puzzle. Someone had reached into a dangerous situation with nothing to gain and everything to risk and had acted purely and immediately. In her world, which was populated entirely by people who acted based on what things would cost or earn them, this was something she didn't have a framework for. She wanted a name. She used every resource she had to get it. For a week, she had nothing. Then an employee badge access record showed one worker missing from his station for exactly 22 minutes during the window of the accident. Jack Reynolds. 6 years on site, single father, no disciplinary record. His employee file photo showed a man looking directly at the camera with clear eyes and the weathered patience of someone who has learned not to expect things to be easy. "Schedule a meeting," she said. Jack knew something was off when the foreman met him at the site entrance with the specific discomfort of someone carrying a message he didn't write. "You're wanted upstairs," Mike said, the big upstairs. With each floor the elevator climbed, Jack's unease gathered itself. He had spent years perfecting invisibility on job sites. Being called to the executive level was the opposite of that. The temporary office was sleek and deliberate. Behind the desk sat Vanessa Mitchell, auburn hair in a precise knot, posture that allowed no room for inference, a fading bruise visible above the collar of her suit. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, rising, "thank you for coming." He stayed near the door. "Is there a problem with my work?" "Quite the opposite." She gestured to a chair. He sat carefully, work gloves in his hands. The contrast between them was total, her tailored suit and the dust of his morning's work. "3 weeks ago," she began, "a beam struck my car on this site. You were there." He said nothing. "You saved my life. And then you disappeared." "Why?" He met her gaze directly. "You needed help. I helped. That's all there was to it." "That's not all there is," she countered. "What you did was extraordinary. Mitchell Enterprises rewards extraordinary actions." She pushed a folder across the desk. "Inside is an offer. A management position in our facilities division, better hours, significant pay increase, full benefits." Jack reached for the folder. Then he slid it back. "I appreciate the offer, Miss Mitchell, but I'm not looking for a new position." Confusion flickered across her face. "This role would more than double your current salary." "I understand what you're offering." He said it evenly. "I didn't help you to get something in return. That's not why I did it." "Then why did you?" The question surprised her even as she asked it, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. Jack shifted. "Because you were in danger. Because that's what people should do for each other. Because my daughter is watching everything I do, learning how to be in this world." Something moved through Vanessa's professional expression. "Your daughter, Emma." The corner of his mouth moved slightly. "She wants to be an astronaut or a veterinarian. It changes about every 2 weeks." Vanessa tried another approach, then a reward, a college fund for Emma. New housing. Jack stood. The disappointment in his expression was real. "Miss Mitchell, turning a basic human response into a transaction cheapens it, doesn't it?" Vanessa Mitchell, who had once reduced a competitor to insolvency over a 6-month campaign she had considered straightforward, found herself with nothing to say. "I need to get back to work," Jack said. "They're setting support beams on 10 today." He paused. "Your jacket. I left it with you." A worn work jacket sat on a cabinet behind her desk. She retrieved it. He took it with a small expression of genuine relief. Their fingers brushed. She felt something she would spend several days trying to categorize. Saturday morning, Jack and Emma were at Westbrook Community Park. He was on the bench. Emma was conquering the jungle gym with the systematic ambition of someone who has identified every feature and intends to use all of them. "Daddy, watch this," she called, hanging upside down. "I see you, monkey. Be careful." He didn't notice the woman approaching until she was beside him. Vanessa Mitchell, in jeans and a simple blouse, without the armor of her professional presentation, looked younger and less certain than she had across her own desk. "Mitchell," he said, straightening. "I live about a mile from here." She gestured vaguely. "Sometimes I walk through on weekends." She hesitated, then sat at the far end of the bench. "I've been thinking about what you said, about cheapening things by turning them into transactions." Jack watched Emma. "In my world," Vanessa continued, "that's how value is determined. Everything has a price." "Sounds exhausting," he said, not unkindly. Emma came running, slightly winded. "Daddy, there's an ice cream truck." Can I please have one? Jack checked his watch. It was before lunch. Emma extended the please across at least 3 syllables. He laughed. Okay, sunshine, just a small one. Emma registered Vanessa with the complete absence of social filter that Jack had learned to both appreciate and manage. Are you Daddy's friend?
I'm Emma. I'm 6.
Hello, Emma. I'm Vanessa. Yes, I work with your father. Do you build the big buildings too? Something like that, Vanessa said with a real smile, the first Jack had seen from her. Jack handed Emma some money. Go check what they have by the fountain. Get me a strawberry popsicle if they carry them. An awkward silence settled after she left. Jack broke it. I should apologize for how I left things in your office. It was abrupt. No, I approached the situation wrong. She watched Emma deliberating at the truck. She's wonderful. She's everything, he said simply. Emma returned, balancing 3 frozen treats. She had bought vanilla for Vanessa, because everyone likes vanilla, she announced, and presented it with the authority of someone who has considered the options. Before either adult could respond, it was in Vanessa's hands, and Emma was eating her own and chattering about school and her best friend Zoe and the rocket ship she was building from cardboard boxes. Vanessa smiled genuinely for the first time in longer than she could quickly calculate. Caught up in the specific momentum of a 6-year-old who has decided you're interesting. What do you do? Emma asked her eventually. I run a company that builds buildings. Emma's eyes went wide. Like the really tall ones downtown? Daddy helped build those. He's the best builder. He fixed Mrs. Henderson's sink and built me a bookshelf for my birthday. She can fix anything except maybe Mommy. But he says some things stay broken and that's okay. The silence that followed was of a particular texture. Jack wiped Emma's cheek with a napkin. Sunshine, why don't you try the swings? Not too high. When Emma was out of earshot, Jack said, sorry about that. Kids have no filter. No, it's refreshing. In my world, everyone has an agenda. She watched Emma on the swings. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Will you come back next Saturday? Emma called from the swing, somehow managing to track the conversation. We're bringing a kite if it's windy. Vanessa looked at Jack. He gave a small nod. I'd like that, she told Emma. As she walked back to her apartment, Vanessa noticed that the persistent tension she carried between her shoulder blades had loosened. She had spent 2 hours thinking about nothing except ducks and sunshine and a child who saw the world as fundamentally safe. She couldn't remember the last time that had happened. She came back the next Saturday, and the one after that. They fed ducks together and flew a kite and walked the trails, while Emma collected rocks and leaves and reported on their properties. Gradually, carefully, in the way of things that grow in the space between people who don't rush them, Vanessa and Jack began to actually talk. He told her about Nancy, matter-of-factly. She'd decided motherhood wasn't what she'd chosen carefully enough to continue. Emma was 3. She calls on birthdays, sends Christmas gifts occasionally. It's better than nothing. For Emma or for you? That's a good question, he said. Both. Maybe. She told him about her divorce from Thomas, who had called her too cold to run a company built on relationships, which she now thought contained both insult and self-revelation. He'd tried to take the company. 2 years of legal battles later, she had kept it. The builder, Jack said. She looked at him, struck by the simplicity and accuracy of it. That's what you are. The builder. He was quiet a moment. I don't think people are that simple. We're all just becoming. All the time, is that what you're doing? Becoming? Trying. Becoming a better father, a better man. Still working on it. The monthly park visits settled into something mutual and expected. Vanessa began planning her weeks around them, delegating tasks she would normally handle personally. Something in the tempo of her professional life changed shape around the new constant. Caroline, her closest friend and legal counsel, noticed. You seem more present, she said over dinner. Less like you're reviewing spreadsheets while we talk. Her eyes were careful. Does it have anything to do with the construction worker? Vanessa told her about Jack and Emma without defensiveness. They've become friends, she supposed. Caroline looked at her for a long moment. Vanessa, you've never called anyone a friend in 4 years of working together without it meaning something strategic. Vanessa set down her glass. He's intelligent, thoughtful, a remarkable father. He has a perspective on what actually matters that I've lost somewhere along the way. And what happens next? The question kept circling Vanessa's mind in the following weeks. She was not a person who let things grow without understanding where they were going. She was not designed for ambiguity. She made an impulsive decision after the board approved the acquisition of a struggling competitor that included Westbrook Apartments among its properties. She had her driver take her to Jack's building instead of home. He opened the door to find her in her executive suit in his hallway, which she registered immediately as an error in staging. The apartment behind him was small and thoughtfully arranged, walls covered in Emma's artwork, bookshelves full of architecture books and children's stories. "Emma's at a birthday party," he said. "Is everything okay?" "Mitchell Enterprises just acquired Westside Development," she said. "They own this building." She watched his expression turn guarded and kept going. "I've authorized a complete renovation, new plumbing, electrical security, and I'd like to offer you a position overseeing it." Jack's eyebrows rose. "Why me?" "Because you care about this place and the people in it, because you have an eye for detail and practical solutions. And what would I owe you for this?" The question stung. "Nothing. It's not a transaction, Jack. It's an opportunity. You're not offering it to any qualified candidate," he said quietly. "You're offering it to me." His voice was steady. "Did you think I wouldn't work with you if I knew who you were? Or was it more interesting to meet the grocery manager? That's not fair. I never thought of you that way. Then why the deception?" He leaned against the kitchen counter. "Because I want you in my life, Jack." He said it before she could. "Isn't that what you're doing here?" She crossed the room to the window. "Fine, yes. You and Emma have shown me something I'd lost access to. When I'm with you both, I remember how to be a person instead of a position." Jack stood too. "Vanessa, I think you're confusing gratitude with something else. You don't really know me. I know enough. You researched me." His voice had an edge now. "I wanted to understand you," she said. "Why someone would risk their life for a stranger and want nothing in return." "And did the research answer that?" "No. But our Saturdays together have. He lives by a code she doesn't, and she needs that perspective." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "Vanessa, I can't be your moral compass. I can't be your window into how the other half lives. I'm just trying to raise my daughter and keep us afloat." "That's not what I meant." She heard the frustration in her own voice. "Isn't it?" he asked gently. "You've come here offering a better job, a renovated building, solving problems the way you solve everything, with resources and efficiency. But some things can't be fixed that way. I'm trying to help, I know, but help that comes with unspoken expectations, I can't accept that. Not for me and not for Emma. You said you want us in your life. On what terms, Vanessa? As a project?" She had no answer that satisfied her, let alone him. She left. The weeks that followed were the ones where she learned what his absence had come to mean. The catalyst came when she was reviewing plans for Mitchell Tower's grand opening. And Robert mentioned the Westbrook renovation proceeding on schedule. She had authorized it as part of the offer to Jack, an offer he had rejected, and she had let it continue anyway. Because he had been right about the residents deserving better. Because doing the right thing was not contingent on whether he accepted anything in return. She stood at her office window, looking at the tower. All of her buildings reached toward the sky, elegant, impressive, designed to be admired from a distance. She had built them and been built by them, and somewhere in the process she had stopped knowing the difference between a skyline and a life. That evening she walked home through the rain instead of taking the car. By the time she reached her building, she was soaked. She stood in her penthouse apartment, water dripping onto the immaculate floors, and looked at a space containing furniture selected by a decorator and art chosen for investment value, and not a single photograph or object that couldn't be replaced by an insurance claim. Thomas had been right about one thing. The next morning she called Caroline. "I'm restructuring my role. I want to step back from day-to-day operations. Focus on strategy and vision, not management of every decision." Caroline waited. "I've built a company that runs on transactions," Vanessa said, "and I've done the same with my personal life." Several days later, in the steady rain that seemed to have become a recurring condition, in this particular chapter of her life, Vanessa drove herself to Westbrook Apartments. She sat in the car for several minutes before going up. Jack opened the door. She was standing there without her executive presentation, hair in a simple ponytail, no armor. He stepped aside. Emma is at her piano lesson, he said. Can I help you? You were right, she said without preamble. I approached our friendship like a business acquisition. Identified needs, allocated resources, sought optimal outcomes. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. That's one way to put it. But I've realized something. She took a step toward him. I don't want to be your CEO or your benefactor. I just want to be Vanessa. The woman who feeds ducks with your daughter. The woman who's learning that some of the most valuable things can't be bought or optimized. And what does Vanessa want? A chance, not to fix your life, just to be part of it, on whatever terms make sense. No strings, no expectations. He studied her. Why? She took a breath. Because when I'm with you and Emma, I remember who I was before boardrooms and balance sheets. I remember how to measure a day by something other than profit. She paused, and because I think I could love you both if given the chance. Jack unfolded his arms. His expression softened. Emma's been asking about you, wondering if you'll come feed the ducks again. And you? He took a step toward her. I've been wondering if you'd ever realize that what makes you remarkable isn't your company or your achievements. It's just you. The woman who sits on a park bench eating ice cream and doesn't check her phone once. Something tight in her chest released. I stepped back from day-to-day operations, created space for other priorities. He was quiet for a moment. The renovation. Is it still happening? Yes, but not as leverage. The residents deserve safe, comfortable homes. That's just decency. He nodded slowly. So where does that leave us? I don't know, she admitted. I'm not used to relationships without blueprints. But I'd like to find out, maybe starting with ducks this Saturday. A key turned in the lock. Emma burst in and stopped, her face transforming. Vanessa, you came back. Are you going to feed the ducks with us again? Vanessa looked at Jack over Emma's head. He smiled. A real one, reaching all the way to his eyes. I think Vanessa would love to feed ducks with us, he said, if she's not too busy. I'm not too busy, Vanessa said, returning Emma's hug. Not for this, not anymore. 6 months later, a crisp autumn morning found them in Jack's kitchen. Emma at the table, cutting hearts from toast with a cookie cutter, a method she had invented and considered an improvement on standard toast. Jack flipping pancakes. Vanessa pouring coffee into 3 mugs, having learned over the past months exactly how each of them takes it.
Daddy, can we go to the new playground after school?
Not today, sunshine. I have the meeting with the architectural firm. Emma's face fell slightly. Oh, right. Vanessa slid a pancake onto Emma's plate. I can take you if you'd like. My last meeting ends at 3. Emma brightened. Really? Can we get hot chocolate? We'll see, the phrase she had learned from Jack as the parental middle ground between yes and not yet. The changes of the past 6 months were visible in small ways. Vanessa's briefcase contained, alongside contracts and project files, a sketchbook for Emma and emergency hair ties. Jack's apartment had new bookshelves they had designed together during evening conversations about whether a fixed shelf or an adjustable system served growing book collections better. He had applied for and received a position as project coordinator, drawing on practical experience and the architectural knowledge he had never stopped carrying. His hours were more regular. His pay was better. Vanessa left the office by 5 most days, which had previously been unthinkable, and had learned to turn off her email notifications on weekends. The company continued to thrive, perhaps more so. Are you nervous about the meeting? She asked. Jack considered it. A little. It's been a long time since I sat across from professional architects. They'll be impressed. Your portfolio speaks for itself. He had started designing again in his free time, small renovation concepts at first, then more ambitious thinking. The meeting today was with a firm that had expressed interest in his ideas for affordable housing that didn't feel cheap. Emma, backpack and shoes, Jack called, checking the clock. As Emma rushed to gather her things, Jack turned to Vanessa. Will you be here for dinner? I should be done by 6. That pasta Emma likes. Perfect. Emma appeared in the doorway, fully assembled. Wait. Group hug first. A ritual she had established 4 months ago. They complied, forming a circle in the small entryway. Jack's arm around her waist, Emma pressing against them both. The feeling that moved through Vanessa in that moment was quieter and deeper than anything a professional achievement had ever produced. A sense of belonging that no corner office had been able to provide, because belonging is not something you can build. It is something you are given, in small increments, by people who choose to give it. At the door, Jack paused. "See you tonight." "Tonight," she confirmed. He leaned in and kissed her gently. "Thank you for what?" she asked. "For seeing me," he said. "Not what I could do for you. Not what you could do for me. Just me." She took his hand, feeling the calluses that had not softened despite his new position, the strength that had pulled her from wreckage in more ways than the literal one. "Thank you for the same." They parted outside the building, each toward their morning. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jack before she reached the car. "Emma says to remember hot chocolate has marshmallows or it doesn't count." Vanessa smiled and typed back, "Noted. Extra marshmallows." She thought about the moment 3 weeks ago when Emma had climbed into her lap during a bedtime story and fallen asleep there, warm and trusting, and Jack had looked at them both from the doorway with an expression she now had language for. She thought about how she had built buildings her whole career to house other people's lives, and had needed a construction worker's daughter to show her what a home actually feels like from the inside. Some foundations take time, Jack had told her once. His architect's instinct finding the exact right frame for it, but they're stronger for it. She put her phone away and walked to her waiting car. She had a company to run and a life to get back to. Both were finally starting to feel like the same thing. The 6 months that followed the morning of the group hug were made of ordinary material. This was the point. Vanessa had spent 14 years in the extraordinary, had built her entire identity around the pursuit of it, and had arrived at the conclusion that the extraordinary was not where the important things lived. The important things lived in the ordinary, in the Tuesday morning routine, and the shared kitchen, and the child who checked that her sandwich was cut the right way before eating it. She had moved into the neighborhood 6 months after that morning, not into Jack's building, but into the apartment 2 blocks away that came available when she was ready to make the change. Close enough for the routines they had built to hold. Far enough that she had her own space for the parts of herself that needed it. Jack had not asked her to be closer. She had decided, which was the only way she could have decided. Her role at Mitchell Enterprises continued to change shape. She had promoted 3 people from within who she had been underutilizing for years, and they were doing better with their expanded responsibilities than she would have done in their place. She still made the major decisions. She had stopped making the ones that weren't actually major. The company continued to perform well, which had briefly surprised her and then hadn't, because the company had always been built on a strong foundation, and it turned out she had been holding parts of it in place out of habit rather than necessity. She spent her freed time in ways that would not have made sense to the version of herself from 2 years ago. She helped at Emma's school book fair, which involved organizing tables of books by genre and negotiating gently with a 6-year-old about whether the book about horses counted as science. She learned to make the pasta Emma preferred from Jack's late wife's recipe, which Jack had written out for her on a card in his deliberate handwriting, and she got it wrong 3 times before she got it right. She attended a community board meeting about rezoning near the Westbrook renovation and understood for the first time from the inside how the people who lived in the neighborhood actually felt about the changes coming toward them. She incorporated what she understood into her next round of decisions. Jack's architectural work was growing. The firm had offered him a part-time position, and he had taken it, keeping the construction coordination work for its flexibility and adding design consultation for the way it used a different part of his mind. He was not the architect he had been before Sarah's illness, which would have required a continuity of practice he hadn't had. He was something else, someone whose understanding of buildings included the real conditions under which they get maintained and inhabited and repaired. The firm found this valuable. He found the work meaningful in a way that had been absent for years. Emma noticed the changes with the comprehensive attention of a child who has always tracked her environment carefully. She noted that Vanessa came to things now, not as a guest who needed to be managed, but as someone who knew where the spare batteries were and how to make the tea properly, and which nights required more patience than others. She noted that her father hummed while doing the dishes, which he had not done before. She filed both observations without comment, being a child who understood that the important things in her house were worth treating carefully. One evening in January, Jack was at the architectural firm for a late meeting, and Vanessa was at the apartment with Emma, who had a project due, and had decided that the best place to work on it was the kitchen table with maximum ambient support. The project involved building a model of a community space with cardboard and craft paper, and a set of opinions about how the common areas should be oriented that Emma had been developing for several days. Vanessa was helping with the structural elements, applying her knowledge of what holds weight in the specific context of cardboard. Emma was explaining her orientation theory in the careful detail of someone who has been thinking about something long enough to want to say it exactly right. "Do you know why it matters where the common areas are?" Emma asked. Vanessa considered, "Because people need to run into each other." Emma pointed her craft glue applicator. "Yes, but also because people need to feel like the space belongs to them. If you put the important parts somewhere hard to find, it feels like a secret, like it's for some people and not others." Vanessa looked at her. "Where did you learn that?" Emma shrugged. "Dad says it. He says buildings should feel like they're yours from the moment you walk in, not like you have to earn them." Vanessa thought about Mitchell Enterprises and the buildings she had commissioned and the lobbies that had been designed to impress rather than welcome. She thought about the conversations with Jack at the park and in the garden and at his kitchen table, about the specific quality of understanding that had accumulated between them over time. She thought about Emma's cardboard community center with its carefully positioned common areas, designed by a child who had absorbed the right ideas from the right source. When Jack came home, Emma was asleep on the couch, the project finished on the table beside her. Vanessa was reading in the kitchen. He came in quietly and set down his bag and looked between his sleeping daughter and Vanessa and said nothing for a moment. She presented her design arguments with considerable specificity, Vanessa said. "I bet she did." He sat down across from her. "Good meeting? Productive." She set down her book. "She wants to be an architect." Jack smiled. "This week." Vanessa met his eyes. "Last week she wanted to be a marine biologist. She's sampling her options." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm glad you're here, Vanessa." The simplicity of it. No qualifications, no conditions, no negotiation of terms. Just, "I'm glad you're here." She had received compliments in boardrooms that had felt like transactions and declarations, in expensive restaurants that had felt like performances, and she had understood from those experiences that neither the venue nor the elaboration was the point. The point was this: a person who meant it in a kitchen on a January evening without an audience. "Me too," she said. "I really am." Outside, the city continued its quiet winter. The renovation of Westbrook Apartments was nearing completion. New plumbing, new windows, the electrical systems brought up to standard. The residents had been consulted at every stage, their specific priorities incorporated where possible, which was most of the time once Vanessa stopped trying to guess what they needed and started asking. The building still looked like itself on the outside. Inside, it was safer and more livable and felt more cared for. This was the right kind of change. Mrs. Henderson, Emma's downstairs neighbor and long-running guardian, had approved the renovation with the measured enthusiasm of someone who has lived in a building long enough to have opinions about everything, and had been surprised to find her opinions sought. She told Vanessa once in the elevator that the building felt different now. Not physically, she said, though that too, but like someone was paying attention. "That's what we were going for," Vanessa said. Mrs. Henderson nodded with the satisfaction of someone whose standards have been met. Then she asked whether Vanessa was going to marry Jack, or whether she was still thinking about it. Vanessa blinked. "Still thinking about it." Mrs. Henderson pressed her floor button. "Don't think too long," she said. "He's a good man, and Emma needs stability." The door opened, and she walked out without looking back. Vanessa stood in the elevator for an extra moment after the doors closed. Then she started thinking in a different way about what she was still thinking about. Jack proposed in the community garden in April, which he had chosen because it was where things had actually started, the first place they had stood next to each other and talked about things that mattered. Emma was there because she had asked if she could be, and he had said yes. She was standing a few feet away, attempting to appear casual about watching them, which was not a thing she was naturally equipped to do. He said, "I know you've built things your whole life that were meant to last." And I know you're careful about what you put your name on. He took her hand. I want to be something you put your name on if you'll have us. She said yes before he finished the last sentence. Emma, across the garden, did not attempt casual about this. She yelled. Rex, who had come with them, barked. A passing couple slowed down and understood what was happening and smiled at each other. The wedding was small and specific, which was the only kind that would have fit. The community garden in late May, the people who had earned the right to witness it, Emma and Mrs. Henderson and Caroline and Jack's sister who had come in from Seattle. No photographers from the press, no coverage in the business sections. A brief notice in the local paper the week after, because someone had seen the garden and recognized Vanessa and asked a question. In her brief remarks, Vanessa said, I built my career on understanding what things are worth. I spent a long time measuring the wrong things. She looked at Jack and at Emma beside him and at the garden around them. The most valuable things I have, I didn't build at all. They were given to me when I stopped trying to acquire them. Emma nodded as if this confirmed something she had already worked out. Jack held his wife's hand, which still had the calluses from years of work that no professional transition would fully smooth away. He thought about the beam that had fallen and the instinct that had moved him before the thought, and the woman he had pulled from the wreckage who had then spent 6 months trying to figure out how to give him something in return and had finally understood that what he actually wanted was not something that could be given in the transactional sense. It could only be arrived at together. He thought about Emma at the grocery store checkout, already slipping her hand into his as they walked away, already his whole world. Some foundations take time, he had said once. They're stronger for it. This one had held.